My name is Patrick, and this is my story. Centuries ago, hundreds of years ago, there was a war. There has been a vast amount of wars throughout time spent by human inhabitants within this world, even hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years back, and wars never change. They are always exactly the same. And an interesting phrase that I have recently heard is, why make history if you do not learn from it? Back to me. Seven to 800 years back, there was a war. The exact specific reason for this particular war I'm not able to recall at this very moment. But the events that had taken place within my life, manifested experience in this world during the war, I do remember clearly as this one event that had taken place is what transformed me into existing as a demon and plaguing humanity, individual human beings, for hundreds of years without stopping. I had a wife and I had a child recently born. It was evening. We had our log cabin within which we lived. Very poor. We had our food on the table, which was usually bread. We had cheese, milk, meat, only once a week. Our main food source was bread and cheese. Fruit even was a treat. Apples, oranges. One evening we were in our home. We were sitting in the center of the room, the wooden table, eating with our hands. Fireplace was to our left. The door into the home was at the back of me. My wife was sitting in front. Our child was sleeping to our left. Our room was to our left. Only one room. We had the kitchen. If I were sitting in the center of the home, on the table, the door to the front was at my back, kitchen to my right, fireplace to my left. My wife was sitting with her back to the wall of the home, and then on the left corner, back left corner, was our one and only room. Our child was sleeping right next to the fire. Men barged in that evening. Army men, military men, their uniform and guns. They demanded food and water. I was angered already in that moment, because how dare they just barge in here demanding food and water as though it was their own home. I remember my child waking up and crying as they kicked down the door, walked in with their guns, uniforms, shouting, yelling. Told me to remain sitting, ordered my wife to prepare them food. We barely had enough for ourselves. I wanted them out of my home, but it was how it worked back then. The men fighting the war was and had power over farmers, and they could order and demand as they please. But I was extremely, extensively pissed off, to say the least, with how they came in. Then they took my wife. She said there is not enough food and water for all of them. I stood up and spoke. And one of the men shot my wife just because I spoke up. Then the other shot my child just because I stood up and spoke. Because I was not allowed to speak unless ordered to speak. And just because I spoke a few words with regards to their mannerism and behavior of entering my home, they shot my wife and they shot my child right in front of me. Killed them, cold-blooded. In my next interview, I will continue.